Board meeting of Thursday, June 5th, 2025. We'll start with Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And for anybody out in YouTube land or Zoom land, you can look at the agenda tonight and find out how to participate in this meeting. Adoption of the agenda. The only change I know of is, call it 4.5 after the administrator's report.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I do want to ask for item 8 to be removed, the Cumberland County Communications Contract. We need to do some follow-up on that before we ask you to approve it.
Glad to remove items from the agenda.
Okay?
Any more?
No?
No. Public comment? No. Select Board announcements.
I have only one. There's a lot of signs appearing on the side of the road out there. A lot of enthusiasm when an election or a campaign starts, but afterwards, the thrill is gone and the signs still stay there. So please take the signs down after next Tuesday.
All right.
I got a quick one too. It'll be June 24th, I believe. We're having a public meeting for the comprehensive plan at the Cundy's Harbor Community Hall at 6 p.m. where the public can come out and offer insight and stuff, and recommend any changes or to give us some feedback there. So I encourage anybody to look at the changes that we made already, and if you have anything you want to say, there's a good opportunity. We're going to have 2 more on Orr's Island and over on West Harpswell coming up after that as well.
Okay, thanks. All right. Town Administrator's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. On the issue of the enthusiasm for June 10th and voting, the town clerk had reported to me that already 740 people had requested absentee ballots, and she wanted to make sure people knew that they were open until 7 p.m. tonight, so 1 more hour. You can come in, you can request the absentee ballot, take it with you, you can call them for the absentee ballot, or you can come in and vote tonight until 7. After tonight, you have to contact the clerk directly if for some reason you can't be at the polls on June 10th. So the polls will be open at Harpswell Community School, again, Tuesday, June 10th, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., and there's lots of interest in this particular municipal referendum and the school budget as well. So now I want to move on to a couple of hiring recommendations, and I'll start with town planner. So I'm very pleased to present this recommendation tonight to the board. It's to request that the board name Margaret McIntyre as the town's planner. Margaret has been serving as interim town planner for about 6 months, and she has just consistently demonstrated the ability to perform at a high level. She is learning as she goes, but she has learned a lot as the former code enforcement officer for the town, and she just, continues to grow in this role. And so I strongly recommend that she be named full-time planner. She has taken a lead in the floodplain management area, and you all may have followed that progress last year. There was a lot to explain to homeowners with the flood maps changing. It was confusing for a lot of people, but Margaret helped make that much more understandable for many. And in addition, she has recently testified in Augusta to support LD 1864, which was a bill Harpswell asked our representatives to introduce so that fishermen who lost structures on wharfs as a result of the January 2024 storms could rebuild on those wharfs, because currently it's very difficult to meet FEMA's rebuilding requirements. So if this state law goes forward, that will make a huge difference for some of our fishermen who want to rebuild. So I think Margaret's keenly aware of Harpswell issues. She understands Harpswell's issues, and she will make an excellent town planner.
I move that we hire Margaret for the town
second
planner.
All in favor?
Thank you.
Good luck, Margaret.
I mean, seriously, good luck.
Next recommendation is for a deputy harbor master. This is a seasonal position, And I'd like to recommend, or actually our interview team, which was comprised of myself, the Harbor Master Paul Plummer, and Deputy Town Administrator and Treasurer Terry Goddard. We are recommending Darcy Kuchar as the Deputy Harbor Master. She's very familiar to many in Harpswell. She has been serving on the Aquaculture Task Force. She will no longer serve on the task force once she becomes an employee of the town, but that work is coming to an end, and she can also serve as more of an advisor, as a staff person in the future for the Commercial Fisheries Committee, or the Fisheries Committee, I guess is what it's called. But she comes well qualified. She's got a bachelor's degree in marine biology. She runs an aquaculture farm in Harpswell. She can operate a boat, so we suggest that you hire her, starting pay rate of $24.50 an hour, effective Monday, June 9th.
I so move, but I have a question. Would the oyster farm present any kind of a conflict for her?
No.
No?
You know, certainly, if there were any type of conflict, we would have the harbor master be involved in any issue that might pertain to that.
Okay.
Frankly, that's more of a DMR thing then. We have very little to say.
Yeah, it's already approved, it's there already, so she's already gone through that application
Okay.
process.
We couldn't find a better person than her.
Oh, I know.
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor?
And the last recommendation for hire is Molly Walter. We need to fill a position at Cedar Beach for another monitor, and she comes highly recommended. She was interviewed, and we recommend that she be hired this season as a Cedar Beach monitor.
I so move.
I so second.
All in favor?
Thank you. And now I want to turn it over to a couple of folks who have been involved in a FEMA grant, and it had to do with post-storm activities. Gail Hayes and Martha Israel are here tonight, and they wanted to do a follow-up report to the board.
Good evening. I'm Gail Hayes. I have bronchitis, so I'm a little hoarse here.
That's a pony, you know, a little horse.
Hoarse.
Don't laugh at his joke.
And I'm Martha Israel, and I'm from the countryside.
Yeah. So tonight we're here to report back on the job that Martha and I were involved with from June 2024 until March of 2025. And we were hired by Maine Health to fulfill a FEMA grant. And our target audience was older adults in Harpswell. And we were chosen because we're Harpswell Aging at Home volunteers and registered nurses. We also had a very strong relationship with the Maine Coast Fishermen's Association, who Abby Westbury had that same job here in Harpswell dealing with the fishermen. We met with more than 25 local groups. We attended local activities like Christmas fairs and things like that. And we met with more than 50 individuals to get their reactions to the storm.
Our grant was supposed to be to identify any emotional distress related to the storm and its aftermath. It's required when you get FEMA grants, that you go in afterwards and do an assessment. And, you know, Harpswell residents are hardy folks who've had to weather lots of storms, and they pride themselves on being independent and resilient, and they're not very comfortable talking about themselves or their personal problems. Yep. So we tweaked the grant a little, because nobody would talk to us.
Shocking.
To include resiliency and preparedness, to not only assess the stress that they had about the storms, but their concerns about what might happen in the next storm. And remember, we're talking to older residents. This approach also aligns with the mission of HA, which is ways in which we can help older residents stay in their homes. So we felt comfortable adding that piece.
And we found that most of the older folks had generators, which we were surprised to find. But they didn't always have access to fuel for extended periods, especially when Brunswick ran out of power for 2 days, or was out of power for 2 days. They're also very concerned about downed trees, and some of their biggest concerns with that are the damage to their property and the cost of removal, because most of them are on fixed incomes, and it's pretty expensive to take down trees. One of the bigger things, though, is that people are really concerned about the inability for EMS, access to EMS and medical services during and after the storms. So some of the areas that people we talked with that were isolated by water were the Bethel, Abner, Basin, Long, and Potts Points, as well as people are concerned about the Oars Bridge. Even though the water didn't go over that bridge, it came very close to the top. On Bailey Island, of course, you know, we had the damage to the bridge. And then Lowell's Cove in Oars Island, people were really concerned about. And the other thing was potable water. People were worried about being able to get potable water during a storm.
I'm going to talk a little bit about that isolation and support. Harpswell has pockets of really strong neighbor-to-neighbor connections, always have. There are lots of community organizations that support each other, churches, book clubs, the American Legion, and nonprofits like HA. And we found that most people, especially the old-time Harpswell residents, seem to have support systems in place with their neighbors and family and friends. But we found out that those systems are rapidly eroding as older people die, they move away, they become sick or fragile. And the new people that move in don't have the same strong sense of community. A lot of them are seasonal people, and they just don't have the same connections, nor do they have the same chainsaw skills that their older neighbors had. So we found that a lot of older residents really don't have the same support systems that they had 20 years ago in case of a natural disaster.
And Martha and I have become members of the Sustainability and Resiliency Subcommittee to become involved with action steps to make the older community more prepared for future storms. And some of the ideas that we have is to help to identify road associations and possibly strengthen their response to storms, continuing to identify people at risk, and working on other items identified by the subcommittee. Do you have any questions for us?
Wow. Haven't left much room for questions. That's a pretty good. No, I think we're aware of the aging community and the fact that sometimes you don't know who lives next door anymore. The fracturing of the community is happening around us, and so I'm glad you're on top of this and trying to point it out to us, because we certainly have. We've been wallowing in it, though, and it's going to get worse.
Yeah.
So we just wanted to tell you what our job entailed, and thank you for listening.
Thanks.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Consent agenda.
Okay, well, I will move the consent agenda, which is the approval of the minutes, the Harpswell Lake Jingle Home request for a fee waiver, a committee resignation, and the authorization of the warrants, including the second one we just got, the CMP warrant. That's my motion.
I will second it.
Nothing unusual, no discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Road projects.
So we have our town engineer here tonight, and Will Haskell from Goral Palmer. He's been working on a number of projects for Harpswell. I think, is the first one the Peabody Road contract?
It is.
Okay. And we also have a representative of Allstate here tonight. The select board had decided to sole source with Allstate based on their performance and their cost to do the Basin Point Road project. So we've been working for a number of months on making sure that the drainage piece was handled by a subcontractor that was reporting back to Allstate, and now I think we have all of the information together, but I'll let the engineer take it from here.
Excellent. Thank you. Not quite sure how you like me to proceed. I can give you a brief description of the project if you'd like, and then cover the contract that we submitted and the cost. Basically, what we're looking at is trying to get authorization from the select board to get the contract signed so the contractor can start doing the work. But Peabody Road, roughly about 3,600 feet long, Road width varies over the length of the road from about 14 feet at probably its narrowest point up to around 19 feet or so. We're doing some drainage improvements in there, and we're also doing some paving improvements. So the drainage improvements, we've got about 4 culverts, 12-inch to 18-inch diameter that we'll be replacing. And then there's a new culvert at 124 Peabody Road that we'll be adding into the project. There's about 250 feet of new ditch line and about 500 feet of cleaning and reshaping existing ditches. So the roadway paving improvements, there were 2 options presented. Option B is the one that we were looking to proceed with, which is basically a pavement option, 2 inches of base pavement, 1 inch of surface, maintaining the existing road width. So we're not widening the road, we're basically maintaining the existing widths. And then putting down shoulder gravel and also tying in the driveways where they connect in with the road.
Have the residents on that road discontinued their requests for speed issues? I mean, they were originally requested something to slow the cars down.
Yeah,
But have they backed off from that, or?
I think they left it in our hands.
Oh, boy.
I know part of our,
Quickly.
we explored that kind of in initial discussions with the town, and then that kind of dropped off the radar screen in terms of what we were asked to do. So we haven't proposed any new traffic calming measures as part of this project.
Yeah, I would say it's not part of this contract. I think it's something we're going to potentially have to address. There are some modifications being done to both the entrance on the north end and the southern end to try to slow traffic down, but that may not resolve issues for the
Right.
entire roadway.
We're basically trying to make the ends kind of tie in at more of a 90-degree angle rather than the,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know, the angle which allows people to kind of wheel in there and wheel out of
Fly
there
in and
pretty
out.
quickly.
Yeah.
I think we talked about speed humps like they have on Winter Street and Topsom now. There's a few that,
The speed tables.
yeah, they're somewhat subtle, but
Yeah.
that's part of a conversation we'll have with Allstate, I guess.
Okay. So really, again, we presented the contract, which is the same contract that we've presented to you folks on other roadway projects in the past. Total price with the drainage improvements and the paving improvements was $620,976.55, which is in that contract document. So I can get into more detail if you want, but that was kind of what I intended to present to you tonight.
Yeah,
So,
we've discussed it at length anyway previously. Are you up to speed?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I read everything.
No? I'm okay with it, David.
I guess one quick question, do you have any idea when the drainage work might start if this was approved?
Yeah.
So you're using 3 subcontractors. They're listed in here, Labby's and Menzer, yeah.
Manzer. Allstate is the other listed entity on there, I think.
So I see Allstate, so it's 2 subcontractors and Allstate, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I move we go forward with it and sole source with Allstate.
I second.
All in favor?
I would like to bring up at this point, however, we haven't finished Basin Point Road yet. And we had promised them lines or some speed bumps or something, and
I think that
You
was
live
put
on
on
Basin
hold.
Point.
I know, but I don't think we didn't finish it. I believe the board put that on hold and said.
well, on hold for how long?
The proposal, the federal government had this, I can't even remember the name of it. We'll have to.
It's
And
still
and
not.
It was just a pilot project, and they were studying it to see if it was a safer way of handling pedestrians and cyclists, or if it was causing more accidents. So we're not ready to proceed with that idea.
It's still not
or
allowed
concept.
anyway. The feds haven't changed their tune.
Okay, I don't want this to fall off the radar because several of the members, residents of Basin Point Road have mentioned it to me. What happened to our lines? What happened to the speed bumps? What happened to the, you know, so I don't want it to fall off the radar.
Where you were addressing the speed, I just wanted to run upon the end of the road commissioner, and that was my first thing that I was really in top tight about, not to build something really nice. It was going to make people drive wide open and not have some kind of a speed control. And Will has in his budget, set it up for 6 new speed limits signs, 3 on each side, going down and up, 25 miles an hour. It's
You're talking
25.
about Peabody, excuse me.
It's 25 right now.
Which road are you talking about?
Peabody.
Peabody,
That's
okay.
the only one I'm dealing with.
Okay.
And we all know people pay attention to those signs.
They will, yeah. It's a new rule now in Harpswell. You watch the speed limits or else. And, no, I'm hoping with the speed signs, and maybe it's a little bit of somebody keep an eye on things, like if the sheriff will drive by once in a while up in there, just keep an eye out, because there are kids up there that play around the road, and we don't want to cause any problems with families getting hurt, so that would be nice.
Right.
And speed bumps, I had them on that road, oh God, for 3 or 4 years. And they'd go up in the middle of the night, rip them up, pull the pins out, and throw them in the woods.
Yeah, they don't work.
Yeah, so then they'd drive so fast. One guy went off the road and went right down by that house across from the big farm. Went right down beside it, almost into the woods. I don't know how he ever made it, really.
Peabody Road has speed bumps now. They're called potholes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. In Basin Point, I can just tell you the first year I was up around, I did 8 culverts on that road.
Yeah,
And they didn't get them compacted good enough.
there were speed
So
bumps.
they were down about 2 inches.
Yep.
And everybody said, gee, when are they going to fix that? So you get them all fixed, and then they turn around and say, can we get speed bumps now? Wait a minute, what's the story here? Yeah, that's all I'm going to say tonight.
Thanks, Ron.
All right.
Thank you.
So I guess on Basin Point, is there no striping out there right now? Did we not put striping along the edges? Because I know we had a long discussion about centerline striping, and that
And the
was
board decided not to do it.
decided
Yeah,
not
that
to
was-
do that.
Well, that's not a good idea, right, yeah.
Well, we're looking at Ash Point Road, and that has no striping, and it seems to work out pretty well. And this time of year, I'm down at Dolphin every day working on my boat. The sheriffs have been there. They're doing their thing. I don't see where striping is going to help anybody with anything.
Yeah.
So that's where I stand on it.
I mean,
I thought that this option to use this federal idea was off the table,
Yeah.
and the board had decided not to paint a center line, and therefore,
Leave it
I
alone.
didn't believe that there was anything else you were considering. So I think I'm a bit surprised that you are expecting something from us, and I don't know what that something is.
I don't know that I'm expecting it, but the residents of Basin Point are questioning me, what happened to is this it? This is what we're going to get?
I haven't heard anything from them in a while.
Really?
I mean, we're more than willing to help the town out in terms
Look
of
into it.
future.
Yeah, I think Ben was looking into it at one point, wasn't he? He and I, years ago, he and I were down there measuring, then
Yeah.
it went kaput.
I wouldn't hold your breath on that option that we presented that was a pilot thing, because that's, I don't think that's going to be coming back as,
Well, it's like that road down in Scarborough, you mean that was, I visited that's kind of different, that's not really what, yeah.
it's confusing in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. It was a nice straight road with a circle in the middle, and that was a whole different thing.
All right,
Yeah.
we're good then.
I just want to say I did put the first stripings on that road. That was the first time it's ever been done. And I had it by 3 elderly people that couldn't see the road when it was really foggy and rainy. They couldn't see with it. One of them went right off the road. You probably know who it was.
Yep.
Went right off the road at Delaras and went right into the woods. And he said, can you do something about so that we can see in that bad weather? So
Yeah,
I went
thought that
down
we
and
talked about that, fog lines. I thought we'd discussed that.
I went down with Lucas Striping and looked it over, and I said, what do you think we should do here? He got out and measured the road. He says, geez, it'd be a perfect chance right now to put a straight line, yellow line, and that's what they call for. So I said, well, you're the professional, I'm not. I just want to get it done, I want to make sure people are safe. So we put it there, and next thing I know, I get a call, want to know who gave me the right to do that. I said, well, it's my road, I guess I got a right to do it.
I thought we had discussed putting fog lines on the sides.
What's that?
I thought we had discussed the fog lines, which are on the sides.
Oh, that's what, yeah, somebody mentioned that too. And I didn't have a problem with that as long as somebody can see the road. I don't care where it is.
Right.
But then the state, was it the federal or state that stepped up and said, stop, don't do any more?
Well, the proposal that Goral Palmer presented was something the town was interested in. It was a federal pilot project, but they're no longer approving those projects. They're studying them to see if they were very
That's
effective.
why they disappeared. I mean, and there was a lot of people against them too. They thought it made people drive faster. I don't see that.
We'll take it up some other night.
Fog lines are perfectly fine.
Yeah, that's different.
That's different than what
Yeah.
was originally proposed.
Right, right.
Right. I didn't mean to.
We'll talk about this.
Yeah. Moving on.
Okay. So the next project I think that's on the agenda is Little Island Road. Basically replacing the riprap there. This is a FEMA-funded project. And again, the goal tonight is that we've presented the plans and the specifications, so we're looking for authorization to put this project out to bid to contractors and get the pricing back on that. Our engineer's estimate is, I believe, within the FEMA's reimbursement amount that they've come up with for the project. So again, that's the plan. It's about 150 feet of embankment there that's getting re-rip-wrapped with larger stone, about 24-inch diameter D50 riprap. The emergency stone that was put back in there after the January storms was relatively small. Some of that's migrated a little bit with wave action. And then finally, as the embankment's done, we would be repaving about 150 feet or so of the road, the causeway, as it goes over there along the embankment.
Yep.
We do have we don't need a DEP permit. We've actually got an exemption from DEP on that. We've got the paperwork for that. But we do have an Army Corps permit, and that's all in place. It's been approved. So we're basically ready to go out to bid and see what we get for interest from the contractors.
I move that we do that.
I second it.
See no discussion. All in favor?
Thank you. And the last project that on my list is the resiliency study for Lowell's Cove Road and Dingley Island Road. If you recall, we presented a prior project, which was for Abner Point Road and Bethel Point Road several months ago. This is the other project that the town received a grant for. And we've submitted a report, which I believe you have a copy of. And I can get into the details of that. I can just review the costs with you on that. I don't know, it's a lengthy report.
Yeah.
I've got a presentation here, which is probably 29 sheets long, which we don't need to spend a lot of detail on each one, but we can skip to the kind of the general description for each road and then the costs for each road, if that works for you.
Yeah. You good with that, Matt?
Yeah.
We've been through it before, but.
Yeah, I read the thing, so I
Okay.
figured I'd catch up.
Yeah.
It was riveting.
One question on Lowell's
Riveting.
Cove.
Keep your way getting.
Lowell's Cove, the way up inside the cove is what we're interested in, but also down at the lower head of the cove, they're both in the EL 13 zone, and but we're concentrating on the upper end because that's the only way in and out for those people, and the other one is not.
Yeah.
So
That's-
that's
So
where it's.
Yeah, originally, I think the grant application was written for the lower culvert.
Yeah.
But then after our first meeting, that exact issue came up, but that has another way out, so let's focus on the other section of it, the upper end of the cove. So
Okay.
that's what we kind of switched gears and moved to that location.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to jump through a bunch of slides here, which you've seen before in my prior presentation, so I'm just going to go right to Lowell's Cove here. So this is again at the upper end of the cove. So the existing roadway there actually already sits more than 4 feet above the highest annual tide. So it technically the road surface elevation there is 4 feet above, or more than 4 feet above the highest annual tide line. We were asked to look at what to raising the road to elevation 13, which is the FEMA base flood elevation. So that's one of the options that we looked at. We also looked at a portable flood barrier, which we talked a little bit again on the last project. We've come up with a new version of that actually can withstand wave action, and so we've got a presentation, or we've got some costs in here for this version, a little more expensive than the version that we talked about for Abner and Bethel Point. But so we basically had two options. Again, portable flood barrier, bringing the elevation up to that elevation 13, or raising the road profile up to that elevation 13. Just a picture of the flood map.
That map is quite remarkable, isn't it?
Yeah.
Quite blue.
That lower road gets flooded out, right?
It definitely does, and that was proven out with the January storms for sure. I don't think it went over the road at the upper,
It did.
but there is a culvert there.
Yeah.
It's a 30-inch culvert at that upper end of the cove. We had initially talked about potentially putting a flood barrier on that, but given that we've got a stream coming down through that, we kind of backed off of that recommendation, because there could be some concerns from the permitting agencies on blocking the migration of
flood from the other side.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, Terry, can you hit that pop-up that came up there? Hear that? So this is just a quick look at the flood barrier. It's just a couple images. This Aquafence flood barrier. They've actually done a lot of testing with this, with actual waves pounding into it, and it holds up quite well. It's a little more costly, but it takes a little more time to set up, but it is less expensive than raising the road. The big issue with it is you've got to have somebody who's willing and able to deploy it every time prior to these events and take it down after the event is done.
I'll tell you up front, I'm not in favor of these kinds of,
I'm just presenting it as an option,
we know, yeah,
because when
thank
we
you.
get to the costs, there's a significant difference in
Yeah,
the
well,
costs.
of course.
So again, some more information there. The heavy dashed black line in that figure would show where you would deploy that temporary barrier if you went with that option. Basically just shows a image of what that might look like. So this is the option where you actually raise the profile. I can't see it very well, so I'm not sure. Maybe your eyes are better than mine, but again, you have it in the report that we sent. Again, bringing the profile up to that elevation 13. I believe, hold on a second. Yeah, that would involve reconstructing about 250 feet or so of Lowell's Cove Road there to accomplish that. So costs. This first option is temporary flood barrier up to that elevation 13. Again, 159,000, 160,000 round numbers for that there. And then option 2 is raising the road, $779,000, $780,000 and that includes that includes the contingency, but also includes estimated design and permitting for that. So it's not just construction, there's some soft costs in there as well. So not insignificant, but
No.
it's better than Dingley Island Road when we get to that.
Does that include private property impacts?
There's only one house there.
I just wondered.
It would include tying their driveway in to that, which, again, they're kind of on the outskirts of the raising of the road, so there would be some impacts to their driveway, and we would tie that back into the new road so they can obviously access and get in and out of their driveway. But there aren't, at this point, any anticipated like fill issues there that we would have to deal with. So there are no like property acquisition costs in this one.
Just driveway tie-ins is what we're talking about.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So Dingley, as you know, has a large open bottom culvert that goes under the causeway there. So we've got a couple different options here. We've got 3 different options here. So we've got a portable flood barrier. Then we've got to raise the road up to, 3.94 feet above the highest annual tide, current highest annual tide. And then we've got raise the road up to the new FEMA base flood elevation, which is that elevation 13.
So the Elsa Martz Bridge would stay there, and you would just raise above it.
Yes. I think our options also include, though, that if you go out and look at that bridge, it's got sheet pile abutments that are
Quarter-inch sheets, yeah. It's-
fairly
and then
well
it-
rusted and
Yep, yeah.
corroded. So our estimates include replacing that structure as well, which is a significant cost.
Yeah,
I think when that was originally built, it was built by the Seabees, if I'm not mistaken. A group came in and did it at a cost that was probably significantly less than what you would pay.
so the sheet steel is backed by concrete. Would you just replace the steel or the whole
I
thing?
think we were looking at widening it out because there's a fair amount of velocity going
Yes.
through that structure when the
Yes.
tide goes in and out.
Yep.
So we were actually looking at widening that, and I'd have to dig into the report to see what we were widening to, but we were looking at making it bigger anyway. But backing the new sheets with concrete.
Okay. Boy.
Again, flood map, base flood elevation there, again, VE zone, I believe, is 13 as well. It's actually, I think, 12 on one side and 13 on the other, but so this option here, we would be putting temporary flood barriers if we were to use that option on both sides, so there's additional length involved. Temporary flood barrier up to elevation 3.9 above the highest annual tide. We're looking at $347,000 for those products at that point. If we installed those up to elevation 13, the length gets quite a bit longer. And it's $473,000 for the temporary flood barriers for that option. And then finally, raising the road. I guess we've got 2 different options here. One, again, to 3.9, basically $2 million.
Wow.
And then the raising it up to elevation 13 is $2.8 million. And just for your information, if you're raising it up 4 feet from highest annual tide, you've got about 350 feet of roadway to reconstruct there. If you're raising it up to elevation 13, you've got about 500 feet of roadway to reconstruct. So,
I can see it flooding a few times.
so I mean, that's the challenge, though. But as these women presented, you know, I mean, concerns about emergency vehicle access
Oh, yeah.
when these roads flood out. You know, that's obviously a concern, not necessarily just for the older folks, but for everybody, really, right? And what do you do when those storms come in? Do we evacuate everybody and move them to a hotel? Or what do you do? I mean,
Yeah. Well,
so
I remember back in '78, they tried evacuating Bailey Allen and nobody left.
right.
Nobody's gonna leave.
Well, they do that down south too when the hurricanes
Yeah.
come in, and you know, a good portion of people leave, but there's a good a portion that don't as well. So, so yeah, I mean, the costs for these projects are substantial. They're not going to be going this way anytime soon either. So every year they're just going to keep kind of going up. But that's kind of my presentation, I guess. So I.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
You ruined my night.
A reality check.
I mean, it's, you know, I mean, this will be 4 roads that we've looked at. I'm not sure if they're chasing any more grants or if there are really any more grants to be had right at the moment.
I would count on it.
So my guess is the grant money for this type of stuff may dry up a little bit. So I'm not quite sure, you know, what your next steps are, but I know you folks mentioned a couple other roads other than these 4, but I think all 4 of these were on your list. So, so there's certainly more out there. They're tough projects to implement, and we've seen it up and down the coast. It's not just here in Harpswell.
Right.
We've looked at other projects in other communities, and it's the same. It's the same everywhere.
So nature's not just picking on us, huh?
I think it's going to be interesting to see what the state is thinking about. You mentioned the Oars Island Bridge. There was damage to the Cribstone Bridge. We haven't seen them do anything down at Potts Point. I think the railing is still banged up, and so I don't really know what kind of plan they're thinking about down there.
They're tough projects to permit too. I mean, and you mentioned some potential legislation to help out with some things related to this storm, but I know there's another topic out there about kind of a one-time shot for residences with seawalls to be able to raise their seawalls up 2 feet. And it's, you know, they're tough, inexpensive projects to permit. The one good thing you don't have much of here on these roads is dunes, because if you have dunes, that adds to the permitting and makes it even harder to permit. So be thankful that you don't have that. But one of the other projects that we'll be presenting at some point in time here in the near future is the bank stabilization down at the end of Ocean Street, the trail to the giant stairs, some erosion down there, again caused by that January storm. And, you know, that it's substantially more than the Little Island Road project. It's a longer section of embankment that needs to be stabilized, but we'll be back in front of you in a month or so, probably with that information.
Have we settled who owns?
Well, what we learned was we cannot use any FEMA money for
Private.
land that was not publicly owned at the time of the
Right.
storm.
Right.
So we have to focus on the town-owned property.
What? Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So
Well,
we're
alrighty.
coming up with a solution to try and make sure that our fix for the town-owned property doesn't get undercut from wave action coming in around it from the side, which is a challenge in its own right, but we're working on a
I
solution.
saw it the other day from the water. It looks worse. Looking at it from the water.
Quit looking.
Yeah, I know.
That's all I've got for you.
Plenty.
I appreciate your time. I'm sure it is.
Thank you way too much.
Yeah, thanks, Will. Did you have something, Mary Ann?
I'm Mary Ann Naif, on the Resiliency Committee, and as Will was talking about the road projects and the costs and the temporary flood barriers, I just wanted to mention that the committee is now looking at how we need to think about all of these as a whole and what the costs are going to be, and maybe some different arrangements for the town to consider rather than raising a lot of roads for those that don't flood that often. And we've reached out to the Fire and Rescue Committee, or the Fire Department, to talk to them about this idea of the temporary barriers. What would be the ramifications of that? Who would be involved with it? And if there was any buy-in to thinking about that as some shorter-term fixes until you can spend the money to raise a road. So I just wanted to kind of mention that we're kind of looking at as a whole. We talked about it this
A
week.
hole that we pour money into.
Well, that we have that, but maybe as looking at these instead of it one project at a time, to start thinking about how the town.
We definitely have to set some criteria for, you know,
Exactly.
what's the priority, you know, so we can establish which one we're going to do first and how much money do we have and.
And that's
Yeah.
what we're going to come to you with a plan for you, then you can make some decisions.
Yeah.
Because they are your decisions in the end.
Great, thanks a lot. Okay.
But I just wanted to mention that because it can become a little overwhelming as we start talking about each one of these.
It already is.
So, thank you.
Thanks.
Oh, yes. We also, as we were talking this week, we're talking about resiliency in the landings. You know, we have Garrison Cove Road and we have Lookout Point. Those are the two we were talking about. But we want to start talking about considering resiliency for the landings as well, and trying to make adjustments there and looking for funding for that. So that is kind of we talked about our overall plan of how we are going to be talking with the select board on that. Okay. Thank you
Okay.
for bringing that up.
All right, thanks. All right. So, should we get Peabody Road out of the way?
We did, didn't we?
Yep.
Gonna go out to
Sign
bid.
it afterwards.
No, I mean,
So we just have to.
we're sole sourcing.
Yep.
Yeah, but there is a contract to sign.
Do that now or after?
Oh, I think if you want to authorize me to sign, or you can sign, whatever.
Yeah,
I move we authorize Christie to sign it.
I'll second it.
all in favor?
Hey,
Thank you.
There we go.
problem solved.
Problem solved. Thank you very much. Hey,
Thank
thanks.
you for coming, Hunter.
All right. Moving on then. Need a gift for painting a fisherman?
I've discovered a typo in here. I don't know if you guys knew about it, but under
Typo?
paragraph A, it says this, there's no obligation. I understand that while the town, I said twice. It's not a big deal, but I don't know how that happened. See what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
Oh,
But he's
Been a
already
while.
signed it, so hey.
Yeah, I think that's just,
Too late to point that out now.
yeah. So tonight, I think the board can decide if you want to accept the gift. It's a painting, a group portrait of 6 Mackerel Cove lobstermen. We've had it posted with the agenda. It was presented 2 weeks ago by the artist Dennis Wilkins, and he is interested in having us be able to display it in a public building.
I absolutely want to accept, and I move we do so. Dennis is a very talented artist.
I will second that. It's pretty impressive.
It is, he did a good job. All in favor? And we've actually found a place, and I actually talked to Gail Hayes and them. I showed them, and I said, what about the pantry? She goes, oh, people are in and out of there all day, you know?
Yes, that's what I
technically
thought.
in the lobby, so.
Probably
people
more
want to see
public
it.
in there than any other room in
Oh,
the
yeah,
building.
easier than wandering down to the conference room. All right. Treasurer's report.
Wow, us.
Good evening, Terry Gaudet, the town's treasurer, here to report on the town's finances as of May 31st, 2025. I haven't coughed all night, now I'm going to speak. Okay. As of May 31st, the town's cash balances was $2.2 million. That included a $500,000 drawdown on the town's short-term borrowing that was needed to make the May school payment. On other balance sheet items, the 2024 taxes outstanding is just over $44,000. Other year taxes outstanding, $14,758, which includes the liens for 2023, which would be subject to foreclosure in December if they remain unpaid. There's currently 13 liens that would mature, plus 4 trailers, which, for the benefit of new Selectman Gilly, trailers, the person owns the trailer, but not
Right,
the
not the
land it's
property.
on.
Yep.
And so, prior boards and current boards have always supported that we don't actually file the liens on the trailer. We will work to get our money somewhere else, but many years ago, when a lien was filed and it foreclosed upon, it cost the town a lot of money to clean up the trailer, so.
Terry, I think I've asked you this, those 13 liens, are they frequent flyers? I mean, can we anticipate that?
They're frequent flyers, one new one, but I had one new one last year, and it was an oversight. And so I'll be reaching out to that person. There's
All right,
no
keep me
one
posted, would you?
dramatically concerning at this point. The tax collector will be recording the liens relating to the 2024 outstanding taxes on Monday. And then taxpayers have 18 months to pay that. They're encouraged to do that sooner, obviously before the automatic foreclosure date, but there is a few, 13 to 15, that will go up to the foreclosure process. On the revenue and expense item side, non-property tax revenue available to reduce taxes is $1.28 million, which is where we want to be. We're at 41.17%. 5 months of the year is 41.67. Our single largest source of revenue, other than property taxes, excise, which is 6.6% ahead of 2024. Mooring and shellfish license revenues have basically been collected due to the dates that were March 31st and May 1. Both permits and recycling center transfer station fees are behind 2024 and behind the forecast for 5 months. But again, 2024 actuals included a dramatic increase due to the January 2024 storms. And while interest is behind 2024 due to at least a percentage drop with the new administration, it's still ahead of the forecast for 5 months, so we're on target there. And revenue sharing is on target as well, so nothing concerning there. On March 22nd, 2025, voters approved the town's budget. There's no concern on expenditures at this point, being so early. 2025 reserve expenditures are related to the town office new HVAC system, the Potts Point Town Dock Replacement Project, the Central Emergency Services Building Project, engineering relating to the recycling center, Mitchell Field Boat Launch, and Capitol Road projects that you heard about this evening, Peabody Road and Little Island Roads. Special project expenditures include payments for the town's revaluation, and ARPA expenditures include a consultant for the town's housing committee, comprehensive plan, and for the purchase of emergency communications equipment. That concludes my May report, but I did just want to quickly state, depending on how things go on Tuesday, June 10th, if voters approve the financing and the concept of the Central Emergency Services Building, the first step in that process is to hire a financial advisory firm to analyze the different financing options, which is the same process that we did with the Mitchell Field Pier. We plan to, for this initial report, go back to the company that did it for the Mitchell Field project as well, Unibank Fiscal Advisory Services. So depending on how Tuesday goes, on Wednesday, I'll be sending that contract to Unibank Fiscal Advisory Services. And then from there, there's usually a workshop with the select board to go over the different options. I'm assuming it's going to result in the same thing that the Pier project resulted in, that we issue our own bonds. But we have to weigh the costs and the staff time to do so. We have a smaller staff than what we did in 2018 when we issued our own bonds. So stay tuned on that front, but we'll be prepared as soon as Wednesday, if voters approve that article, to get that project moving forward. And that concludes my report.
Thanks, Terry.
Thank you.
Midcoast Council of Governments representation.
Yes, so the town of Harpswell is a member of this organization. It's a nonprofit organization. It's comprised of many municipalities. I think there's like 66 from our Midcoast region that are in the Midcoast Council of Governments. The office is currently based in Damascotta. Each year we have a request in the budget, and it goes to the town meeting that the voters have approved the membership fee for MCOG. Harpswell gets 2 members, one an elected official, one a non-elected official. Select Board member Jane Covey was the board's elected representative, so that's now vacant. The other member has
I think
been...
Matt took her place. He ought to
Kevin already gave me the side eye.
Yeah.
And then the other member has been our former state rep, Jay McCrate, and she's willing to continue on if you would like her to do so. She's been
would.
very
I would.
active and involved.
Oh, yeah.
So I think the discussion is which member of the board would like to step up.
How often do they meet? I don't remember.
Well, there's an annual assembly meeting, which is coming up in June, and it's a good idea to go to that. You basically have to vote on the budget, whether there's any changes to the bylaws, that kind of thing. But then it's, I don't think there's a lot of required meetings. You
Good
can
thing to
go
put on
if
your
you'd
resume.
like. They have a board, and they've named some of the members on the board here, and their board meets, their executive board, I should say, I think meets once a month.
He
But
said
you
yes.
would, okay. But you wouldn't be on the
You
executive
can
board.
stop talking now.
Unless
He's-
they voted, I assume they vote on an executive board on a
Yes,
yearly.
right.
Do
Yes.
you just happen to know, do they do it on a yearly, bi-yearly?
I think it's annually that
Alright.
they vote on the
So I'll
board
just make
members.
sure not to get voted on that.
No.
You don't want to miss any meetings on that one, I'll tell
You
you.
can't make
Well,
it.
they don't yet have your name, so I don't think they
You have a
do.
job, I don't.
So I'm good for Matt and,
I think it'll be
Okay.
interesting though.
So do you want to
And Jay.
vote that?
yeah,
Matt
I
would
move
be
that,
the-
I move
okay.
that Matt represent us as the elected official.
I second it.
Can I vote for myself?
Sure.
Oh,
why
yeah.
not?
Okay.
Yeah.
All in favor?
And then Jay would continue, is that
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Great,
Public
thank
comment?
you.
I don't see any. Other business meeting.
Well, I think we're trying to really firm up what your, the rest of your June schedule looks like, and,
When are we doing the non-resident?
yeah, we should talk about that. We have not scheduled that non-resident taxpayer meeting yet.
You like that one, Matt? It's a love fest.
Is it?
Yeah, usually.
I know that the comp plan task force is having a meeting at the Oars Island Schoolhouse in early July, I think.
Yeah.
So we certainly don't want to compete with that for the non-resident taxpayer meeting. We've been going to the school,
Yeah.
Harpswell Community
We did it.
School.
When do you do it on a weekend usually, or when do you guys usually do it?
Usually
During the
evening,
week?
yeah.
Oh, yeah, school's not in session.
Yeah,
so-
but it's like 6 o'clock at night.
Yeah, whatever.
We've done it at the Ozalem Schoolhouse before.
How many
But-
people do you usually show
It
up?
varies, 50.
Sometimes a little more.
And usually, we talk, they listen, and that's the end of the meeting, you know?
So do you remember the date of the comp plan? Is it July 9th?
I can,
Oh, it's on the calendar.
I was gonna say, I can pull it up in my email.
It's a Wednesday, July 9th.
It is? That comp plan meeting?
Well, July 9th is a Wednesday. I don't know
Oh,
if
yeah,
that's-
I knew it was a Wednesday, yeah. Let's see.
No, I think, no, I think our meeting's on a Tuesday.
The 8th?
Or, yeah, it might be, hang on.
July 8th.
Yeah. So we could do that Wednesday, then,
But is that too close? Are we gonna, if you have your comp plan meeting and then the,
whatever.
Well, it'd be two different,
yeah, I know.
it'd be two different cast of characters.
I will just say, last year, after the non-resident taxpayer meeting, which was held on a Tuesday, we heard from several people saying, requesting, when you schedule next year's, that you would consider Thursday through Monday, leave Tuesday and Wednesday out of it, because the non-residents will come up, usually sweep in a weekend on one end or on the other end,
Yeah.
but Tuesdays and Wednesdays are difficult.
So a Thursday then,
Yeah, we could do
pick a
it.
date.
Or a Monday?
Or Monday, but
I would say a Thursday.
you do also have to finish your June meeting schedule so that we can then figure out into July.
Yeah.
So staff was going to recommend that you go 3 weeks
Yeah.
until
Meet on the 26th.
on the 26th.
I knew you were going to say that. That's when the fire department barbecue is, at
Oh,
What time is that?
5.
5 o'clock.
Oh, dear.
I just knew you were going to say
We
that.
could do a Wednesday, you know,
We could,
not
that's right.
it's in stone.
True. It's just that June 19th is Juneteenth, so
Oh,
we're trying to reschedule around that. I don't know
Yep.
if you, so do you want to go to Wednesday, the 25th?
yeah.
Yeah, it's fine.
And then going from the 26th every 2 weeks out from there?
Yeah,
So that would be the
that way there,
10th and the 24th in July.
And then 24th.
so the 17th of July then, for a non-resident? Is that a Thursday?
Yeah, it's a Thursday.
Probably not a very popular suggestion, but July 3rd, they'll all be coming in that
Oh,
weekend,
gosh.
but
Yeah,
that's not a
yeah.
popular
That's
suggestion.
Oh,
really-
no.
Yeah, I don't think that would.
Sorry, I can't bite on that one.
How about Monday, the 7th, if you wanted one close to the 4th? I don't know, maybe not that either. The 17th is sounding good. What?
The 7th would work.
The
but
7th? What do you think of Monday, the 7th?
Yeah,
Does it give us enough time to get all the notice out, or would it be better to go with the 17th?
Yep.
Huh? Okay.
Yeah, we have
So
a
I guess it could be Monday. We have to get in touch with the school, though. We don't know if the
Right.
school's available yet, so.
We can
Tentatively.
tentatively schedule it for the
So if
7th,
the
and then have
schools
like
are-
a
Okay.
rain date, for lack of better terms, on the 17th.
Yeah, so if the school's available on Monday, the 7th, you'd be fine with that?
yeah.
Whatever.
And if not, we'd go to Thursday, the 17th. Okay, we'll look into those dates.
Yep.
Great.
So wait, we're
So
not,
you're going to meet again on Wednesday, the 25th of June.
20. And then we're gonna start going every 2 weeks
Yeah.
from basically the
Yeah.
26th.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
July 7th. Right.
okay.
We good? Any other business? Yep.
So this comes from your recycling center manager and transfer station manager. Every year, Selectman Chipman and Chairman Johnson will recall, every year, They grind wood at the transfer station, and I'm sure Selectman Gilly's familiar with seeing that happening there. Several years ago, it became very difficult. There's not many contractors out in that industry anymore, and so the board said, fine, the manager can work with this company on an annual basis. And so he has worked with Douglas Jones Inc., Cross Excavation Corporation. He's already started the grinding, but he held his prices from last year. It will not cost anything for grinding and removal of brush. And we will pay Jones $63 per ton for the removal of the clean demo and the subsequent grinding. And if you would consider authorizing the administrator to sign this.
I so move.
All right, so second.
All in favor?
Let's get her done.
All right, in that case, I see nothing else. We're adjourned.